In 1933, Germany was in a very poor and economic situation. They were in need of a charismatic and influential leader, Adolf Hitler.
In March of 1933, Adolf Hitler, Germany's new chancellor, initiates the Enabling Act, making him virtual dictator of Nazi Germany. In October of that same year, Adolf Hitler decided to leave the League of Nations, which the world saw as belligerent behavior. In July of 1934, President Paul von Hindenburg dies, thus making Hitler the supreme ruler of Germany, or Führer and Reich Chancellor. In 1935, Hitler begins to rearm Germany, violating the Treaty of Versailles. Sir Winston Churchill of Britain was elected Prime Minister of Britain, for the acting Prime Minister, Neville Chamberlain, was using his own appeasement strategy, attempting to pacify foreign relations with Nazi Germany. British Prime Minister Churchill made many claims advocating his concern over these developments in Germany. He wanted to restore Europe to her peaceful glory. Churchill often referred to 1934 and 35 as the locust years, for he claims they were eaten up with wasteful thinking by the British government on domestic issues. Churchill was a member, but a powerful member, of Parliament.
There can never be friendship between the British democracy and the Nazi power. That power which spurns Christian ethics, which cheers its onward course by a barbarous paganism, which vaunts the spirit of aggression and conquest, which derives strength and perverted pleasure from persecution and uses, as we have seen, with pitiless brutality the threat of murderous force.
In July of 1939, Germany invades Poland, initiating World War II in Europe and confirming Churchill's concerns. The USSR, the United States, and Britain and France eventually win World War II. Though they won the war together, the Soviets wanted to take most of the European cake. This, yet again, set Churchill off. He had a new enemy, Stalin. In February of 1945, Winston Churchill, FDR, and Stalin met to negotiate the status of impending post-war Europe. Britain had not yet achieved Polish independence, which had been a huge goal of theirs from the start of the war. Also, a goal Churchill was aiming for himself. Tension began to rise as communism was growing in popularity and scope. It was becoming clear that there was a stark contrast in capitalist and communist ideals.
It is victory. Victory at all costs victory. However long and hard the road may be, for without victory there is no survival.
After agreements from the Yalta Conference, Europe would be divided by the conquering powers at the Potsdam Conference. The new map of Europe gave Churchill cause for alarm about Soviet intentions. Franklin Roosevelt, now deceased, was replaced by Harry Truman. Halfway through the conference, on July 26th, Churchill was replaced by Clement Attlee, for Churchill had been ousted from his office. Britain didn't want a war hero. They wanted a pseudo-FDR. So Truman wanted to disband the original agreement. Churchill and his abrasiveness were gone, and Stalin was the most experienced politician at the conference, and it showed. The Soviet sphere of influence remained largely intact, giving more land and governments to the communists. All the while, Churchill was making the same claims he made about Hitler, not to mention the fact that in October 1945, the United Nations was also formed. In early discussions, Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin discussed a world organization that would unite together.
In 1946, Winston Churchill would give a speech that would characterize foreign policy to come.
Post-war Britain had entered into a new phase of socialist sympathy. The Labour Party had ran, and ultimately won, on a platform of promoting personal economic gain for each and every Brit, a platform most definitely enticing to the average war-ravaged Brit. Churchill's rhetoric of coming war, Stalin's aggression, and Hitler-esque signs fell on deaf ears. Due to strong dissenting opinion, Churchill tucked his tail and made his way to one place where anti-Stalinism was in full swing, the United States. On March 5th, 1946, at Westminster College in Fulton, Missouri, Churchill delivered a speech that would characterize foreign perception of Stalin for decades to come.
From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across the continent.
The Iron Curtain speech fueled the world to do something about Soviet expansion. Prior to the speech, the world really didn't want to do anything about the problems of Soviet Russia expanding their territory, but after Winston Churchill spoke in America, this fueled the world to recognize the problem and do something about it.
This speech resonated with Americans and the world. Out of this speech alone came the enactment of two huge decisions by the American and other foreign governments. The U.S. established a European recovery program named the Marshall Plan. It was established to build Europe after World War II. It was also developed to strengthen capitalist Europe against Soviet expansion. The Marshall Plan gave Western Europe $13 billion to rebuild, with a lot of it going to the nation of the United Kingdom. This was initiated because of Churchill's warning of a growing Soviet expansion and economic concern. The second big action that came from Churchill's Iron Curtain speech is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. After the Second World War, Europe wanted to rebuild their economies and ensure their security, primarily against Soviet expansion. With the economic component of this vision already intact, the concept originated with Churchill.
You have to convince the Soviet Union that you have superior force, and that is the greatest chance for peace.
This organization still stands today as a beacon of power for the free world. With just a few speeches and one strong opinion, Churchill was instrumental in leading to the creation of world power for democracy, right-wing politics, and anti-Stalinism. Churchill, because of this, was then re-elected to Prime Minister in 1951. Churchill's instinct was one of impeccable accuracy. After his pleas were unheard during the rise of Hitler, he tried relentlessly to stop the advance of Soviet Russia. Because of Churchill's actions, the Allied powers were pushed a little farther and a little faster towards caging the bear and pulling back the Iron Curtain.
Because of Churchill's vision and tenacity, the world became a safer place. God save the Queen.